My name's Nick Swayne, and I was a major in the Army, and I was assigned to Sarajevo, part of the 6th PSYOP Battalion, which is at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. The psychological operations mission had several different purposes. One was just to help build peace and get people to work together and live together and stop shooting at each other. So that was kind of our first mission. Was just to, the war was over. There was still a lot of tensions in the country, and so it was kind of a nebulous mission to just build peace. But that's kind of our primary mission. We also started working then on just solving other problems that we saw came up. So demining became a big issue because you can't have freedom of movement, and you can't return to normalcy if you can't get rid of the landmines. And so that became a big issue. Right. So mines were used prevalently by all factions because the terrain was just very conducive to that. You could control where people could go and where they couldn't go by putting up a bunch of mines. It was very cheap and easy, and you really there wasn't a big concern for civilian casualties. So there were minefields everywhere. They mined playgrounds. They mined farmland. They mined cemeteries, schools, apartment buildings. There were mines everywhere. And so the story was that Hillary and Chelsea Clinton came into the country, and they went up into the Birchko area. They didn't come into Sarajevo. At least if they did, we didn't see them. And they were shown a bunch of the materials about demining, which were all they sort of looked like propaganda materials, all very black and white, stark colors with very austere warnings on them, which were obviously meant for the adult population. And apparently Chelsea Clinton said, okay, this is great for adults, but what are you doing for kids? And there were enough people there that were interested in doing something for kids that they said, okay, well, we'd be interested in doing something about that. And apparently Mrs. Clinton said she knew the folks at DC Comics, and maybe we could do a comic book that would address that issue. And I'd like to say that there was a significant amount of research done on identifying the proper comic characters, but really it was just talking to our 25 translators about which character they thought would be most recognizable by the Bosnians. And they said, all the Superman movies have played here, and so they were familiar with Superman, but some of the other characters that would are popular in comics today in the U.S. Were largely unknown by the Bosnians, so they settle on Superman basically on those kind of conversations. Yeah, so we kind of laid out a storyboard about figuring out what it is that we want them to do, and it was just it's supposed to be a comic book with a message, and so trying to figure out what message you can convey to kids without it looking like propaganda. So it had to have a real storyline. And so we kind of just went back and forth with DC Comic illustrators and their story writers about what could be portrayed and how it would be best portrayed. And they would fax us or email us little pieces of the storyboard and with sketches and illustrations, and we would make comments and send them back. And so it just went back and forth for a couple months, and we sort of settled on the illustrations as it were that we came up with, and then they colored it and produced it. Yeah, so this is the comic book that we came up with, and one of the so the story is about a little girl that gets caught in a minefield, and some boys that get caught in the minefield, and how Superman comes in and rescues them. And There were some interesting things like on the cover, when they did the original one here, the mortar shell here was in blue, and when we went back and talked to them and said, everybody that knows anything about mines would know that this is would be a training round and not a real round, because the real rounds are green, and so they had to correct that. And then the final thing was on the back page, trying to figure out what's the call to action, because having a nice comic book without so you see a landmine, what do you do? And so trying to come up with a call to action which is what the back page is, was one of our bigger challenges. And so the language here was language based off of a couple of other products, but it says mines kill kids. For more information on how you can prevent these accidents or tragedies on it, it's been 20 years, so I don't remember, but call the Mine Action Center, and it had a phone number down there. And so that was our call to action, was to have folks call the Mine Action Center. I think it was very popular with kids because it was really geared towards them, and it was in a language that they could understand. They would, it was written well to their level, and so I think they really liked it. Whether it was effective as a demining product or not, I don't know that we were ever able to figure that out. I know that the Mine Action Center, which was staffed by really one guy, got a little upset after we started disseminating, because he was just overwhelmed with phone calls. So on one hand, I'd say it worked. People were finding landmines and calling him, but it highlighted sort of a systematic error in our plan. Was, we just wanted to get people to start calling in and reporting mines so that we could do something about it, but our infrastructure for dealing with the mines wasn't developed enough to respond to all the calls that we were getting. And so so I guess that would impact the effect of the impact of the product itself. So if we had the infrastructure in place to really deal with the phone calls, we might have had more of an impact on the demining effort. So I don't know.